Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was shit. It was fucking garbage. It was the worst movie in the planet. Alright, now that I have your attention, hello and welcome to the show with reviews. I'm Auram, and I actually really liked the movie, but I just wanted to see if that would work. Did it work? Are you angry? Have you already typed your angry comment in the comments? I honestly don't even know what the general opinion of the movie is. I just got back from seeing it. So, I got this. It's a cup with Coke in it. It's Groot. Roll a bumper. Okay, so normally the way that I structure my reviews is I do like a general review of the movie, and then since comic book superhero movies tend to be pretty, like, everyone's pretty sensitive to spoilers, then I go into spoilers after that, but I give, like, heavy warning. So don't worry about spoilers. When I get there, I will make sure to let you know. So yeah, don't worry about that. I'll give you a warning and give you a time code to skip to if you don't want spoilers. Anyway, let's jump into my general review. Overall, this movie was fantastic. It was great. Like, it's a really refreshing movie in a sea of what has been either mediocrity or just Marvel movies that were good but have been following the formula. This one kind of breaks that and stands out as its own thing, especially compared to the first Guardians of the Galaxy, which is, it largely feels like just a tie-in to the MCU, like the larger MCU at the time, because Thanos had been set up in the Avengers and has been just kind of a looming threat, and then he's fully realized there, and literally the plot of it is Infinity Stone MacGuffin Town, to just go and find the Infinity Stone, which is the orb, but it's just a MacGuffin, which is, and they do, like, kind of the opposite in this movie, where there really isn't a MacGuffin at any given point, which is great, and there really isn't plot in the movie for a large part of it, like a thing that, like a purpose for the movie to exist. It just kind of happens in front of you for the first hour and a half, which on paper sounds terrible, but it works really well here because the Guardians of the Galaxy, as evidenced by their books and the previous movie, is a very character-driven like story or team or just mythos. Because I feel like with the first movie, James Gunn was going for a very character-driven experience thing, but Marvel kind of cracked the whip and was like, you need some kind of driving force, some kind of plot, and then that came in the form of kind of a lackluster MacGuffin plot with a not great villain in Ronan. But now in Volume 2, without going into too much spoilers, the movie is just lots of character development and things just happening in the universe until like an hour and a half in, and then like the villain rears his head and they have to deal with him. But yeah, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in spoiler territory, but it's a really refreshing break in the Marvel formula where the first 30 minutes of the movie are not just setting up the villain, setting up the hero, and then the rest of the movie is just them clashing, and then the hero failing, and then the hero coming back stronger with something changed to... It's not the hero's journey, basically. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 just kind of stands out as its own thing, and that's fantastic. I want to touch on the opening title card in this one. The opening title card in Guardians of the Galaxy 1 was, or just Guardians of the Galaxy, was awesome. It was I don't remember the planet, but Star-Lord is just on that planet, he's singing into the Rat Boy, and then it goes like an extreme wide shot, and you just see the logo, just bam, right there. There's something similar in this movie at the beginning of the movie, and it's fucking great. It sells really well, and it just gets you excited and sets the tone for the movie, and it's awesome. It's on par with, if not better than, Guardians of the Galaxy for the first. Guardians of the Galaxy the first. Speaking of that, I don't know if I mentioned, but I think that this movie is much better than the first one. And that's not like that's not saying that the first one's garbage or anything. It's just this one, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 feels like what James Gunn wanted to do in the first one, but what just kind of was constrained by the Marvel formula a little bit. So I'm glad that, and who knows, maybe James Gunn wanted that MacGuffin stuff in there, but it really does feel like his vision was the sequel, and it's far better than the first one, in my opinion. And I have heard a little bit of rumblings, like, I think the one, I didn't even think about this while I was watching it, but the one opinion on the movie that I saw was a tweet that said, like, how James Gunn made his Empire Strikes Back with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which I totally agree with. Not saying that this is up there with Empire Strikes Back, but in terms of the sequel being better and setting, like, a precedent, this is definitely up there. A couple other notes, the VFX were gorgeous as always. Marvel and just, like, blockbusters continue to blow me away with their VFX. It's just, like, the standard for that is incredible nowadays, and I'm constantly just surprised and excited to see where that's going. The acting was great. Nothing really stood out. The only thing that was kind of weird to me was Gamora, who had some weird parts. Personally, Zoe Saldana's voice doesn't really fit Gamora, in my opinion. Whenever I read Gamora, I hear, like, kind of a more gruff, deeper voice than what comes out of Gamora in these movies. That's not, like, harping on Zoe Saldana or anything, but it's just a personal preference, I guess. It's the same thing that I'm probably gonna have a problem with Brie Larson playing Captain Marvel, is when I read Captain Marvel, I hear Jennifer Hale, and Brie Larson does not sound like Jennifer Hale, so there's gonna be a weird disconnect that I'm gonna have to get used to, but it's fine. I don't really have a whole lot of bad stuff to say about this movie. I just enjoyed it through and through. Like, it was a fun time. Nothing felt, in the beginning, the pacing was a little weird, and the initial, like, shell shock of there not being, like, a Marvel formula happening in front of my eyes in a Marvel movie was like, what the hell's going on? What's the point of this movie? Then I realized, like, oh, this is just it's like a comic book that's just character development, basically. And it's fun, and it's a good time. It just takes a little bit to, like, wrap your mind around that's the thing that's happening, as opposed to, alright, MacGuffin or villain, kill or take. But yeah, overall, super great and refreshing story, movie, everything. I highly recommend checking this out. Even if you haven't seen the first one, really, there's not a lot of connective tissue between the two. It's just characters existing in both movies, and there are some, like, offhand references that you probably wouldn't super get if you hadn't seen the first movie, but it's not like a TV show season that it's a big commitment to catch up with. Just dedicate, like, I think the Guardians 1 is probably like 2.5 hours, so just go see a double feature if you're watching this at the time that the movie's out. I'm sure some local theater has a double feature playing, or just make your own. Watch Guardians 1, then immediately go watch Guardians 2 in theaters now. May 5th. Anyway, we're gonna get into spoilers now. Skip to this little time code if you don't want spoilers. So yeah. Don't click it though, because that annotations are dead, so you can't click it. But you can skip to the time code. That's why it's a time code. I know people were used to be like, click this, but that doesn't work anymore, so yeah. Anyway. Spoilers now. I don't know why. Alright, so, my favorite fucking thing, I don't know if it's my favorite thing, but it's just hilarious to me. We saw Watchers in this movie. Like, you know when everybody in Guardians 1 was freaking out about how, like, Howard the Duck showed up? Howard the Duck did show up again in this movie, but it was very brief at the beginning of the movie. But fucking, the Watchers are in this movie. You see 3 of them, technically 4, because it's the Stan Lee cameo. There's 3 Watchers just in, like, a planet that Rocket, Yondu, and Groot are just kind of jumping through. I don't know if it's a planet. It's probably a planet. I don't know why the Watchers would be on some weird random planet talking to Stan Lee. But Stan Lee is there in like a spacesuit, which kind of confirms that he's a Watcher, but also maybe not, because he very clearly doesn't look like one of the Watchers, and he's just kind of like telling them stories regardless. It was great. We saw the Watchers, and they showed up again in the post-credits scene, which it was just them, like, walking away, being bored, and Stan Lee's like, you guys are my lift, how am I gonna get back home? Which, maybe he's not a Watcher? I don't know. They probably threw that scene in there because of all the very popular theories that he is a Watcher. Like, why else would they do that? But it was fun. It was really cool. I'm glad we got to see some Watchers, which makes me think God, I really hope they throw something in there for us comic book fans in like Infinity War or something when shit like starts to hit the fucking fan. Like if there's a big wide shot of everybody and like Thanos is standing right here and like everyone against Thanos is standing on the other side. He's all like big and stuff, and you just see in the middle just a Watcher like float down. And everyone's like, what the fuck? And Thanos is like, hell yeah! And then he jumps at him and starts fighting, and the Watcher's just watching. I think they probably wouldn't do that because everyone in the theater would be like, the hell is happening? Who's this baby bald boy? What's going on? But I would love it, and I'm sure thousands of other people would love it. But yeah, so that was like the biggest, like, new comic book reference thing. Maybe the Watchers will get a book now. That'd actually be super fucking cool. I know that's what like the What If series was for a while. Ooh, maybe they'll bring back What If. God, that'd be cool. Oh, what if they did like a What If book and it's the Watcher telling the story of all the universes that Reed Richards, Sue Storm, and their kids are making right now? That'd be so fucking cool. Marvel, get on it. That'd be great. I would love that. You could do so much shit in a series like that. Ooh, boy. Call it the Watchers, but the Watchers are Reed, Sue, Franklin, and Valeria. Bam. You don't need to pay me for that. Actually, if you paid me for that, that'd be great. But you don't need to. Just put my name in like the fine print. Just put Auram on there, or just put like ads in the book. Subscribe to, anyway. So one of the big things that I don't know, I personally don't know if this was revealed beforehand, because I know James Gunn talked about how this movie was going to focus a lot on Star-Lord's father, and it was going to kind of be the story of that, which it was, but I don't know if it was revealed before the movie came out that Ego specifically was Star-Lord's father. I didn't even know that Ego was going to show up in a human form in any way, which, side note, side tangent thing, it is kind of a plot hole that Ego took on a human form before he ever met humans, and he specifically said that he took on a human form, which that's just a thing that confuses me. I don't really know the semantics of that, because it seems like humans are everywhere in the universe, so are they just like being abducted from Earth? Or are there humans in other planets somewhere? It's confusing to me. But anyway, I thought it was kind of a weird decision to make Ego Star-Lord's father. Ego is Star-Lord's father, by the way. I don't know if that was revealed beforehand and I was supposed to know that going in. But it wasn't shown in the one trailer that I saw. So, or two trailers, I think. Regardless. It was a weird decision, but I enjoyed it. I liked what they did with it. He was a very interesting character. He, like, right off the bat wasn't super, like, I'm the bad guy. Rah! It just kind of, like, it was interesting, and it was super cool to see, like, an actual Celestial, and, Star-Lord's heritage being half Celestial was also pretty cool, and it was pretty cool for this movie, but I'm glad that they put a pin in it, and Ego was like, if I die, fuck you, you're no longer half Celestial, so I'm glad that Star-Lord is no longer a god, because that would have been a little bit odd. I also, harping on Ego a little more, I really liked the few times that they showed, like, the planet, the actual planet, and you could see his, like, ego-ass face, which I'm so glad we got that, because I was worried when, I was worried that, like, actually, when Ego first showed up as a human, because I didn't even know that he was going to be a human, I didn't see any ads for it, when he first showed up, I was like, oh, is he not actually the planet? Is he just a Celestial that made a planet? But he is actually the planet. He's just, like, the human version of him is just a, like, an embodiment, a vessel that he created, basically, so he could go find a purpose or whatever. But yeah, that was cool. Ego is a big man. Big planet man. So one small thing that I definitely want to talk about is the, my favorite line in the movie, which is just beautiful. I love every bit of it. It's just, so after Ego shows Star-Lord that he can, like, use the light, or whatever that is, to basically just be a Celestial boy and make, like, constructs, essentially. I'm sorry, I've been drinking a lot of Groot juice. Burpee. And then Ego's like, dude, you're like half celestial, you can make stuff. You can make like a whole planet. And Star-Lord talks about how he wants to make like a statue with Pac-Man and everything. And then fucking Ego goes, yeah, you can make whatever you want. And Star-Lord just turns to him and goes, I'm gonna make some weird shit. That was, I think that got the biggest laugh out of me from the movie. Just because that's such a weird humor like that is, and not just like the word weird, but like it's such a non, I don't know how to describe it. It's just funny. You can't describe humor. It's just funny. And I think Guardians, the comedic style in Guardians is a very unique, not unique to Marvel movies, not unique in general, but a lot of the Marvel humor in other movies other than Guardians, and even like Guardians 1 falls prey to this a little bit, is just like snarky, quipping stuff, but there's just more like actual like character humor jokes in this, and that line is just like perfect to me. I'm gonna make some weird shit. It's great. I love it. It's amazing. Now to get a little sad on ya. Yondu died in this one. I feel like it was a bit to be expected because I don't think Michael Rooker gives a shit about anything. He might, but like I get a very like, I don't know why I'm here or what I'm doing vibe from Michael Rooker in like interviews and stuff. But anyway, that's beside the point. His death was very touching. The Ravager like funeral and stuff was very nice. It didn't feel like awkward or shoehorned in or anything. All the like touching moments that were there felt natural, and I enjoyed it. I'm not a huge fan of a death needing to happen in every movie, just because it at a certain point feels like a cheap ploy to like get your emotions out of you, or just have something permanent happen in a movie. Because like there is a point where like case in point, Civil War, everyone, and this was partly because in the Civil War comic book Captain America famously dies and other people famously die, but in the Civil War movie, no one dies, but leading up to it, there were just, I mean, I even made a video about it way back when, like, who's gonna die in Civil War, because that's a thing that normally happens, is someone dies in a crossover movie, or just a movie in general. And, well, there was also, in the trailers, we saw a funeral shot, which was Agent Carter's funeral, but, yeah, so, I'm not a fan of, death being, like, a selling point to movies, especially superhero movies. You can definitely tell a great story without having someone die. You could get emotions out in other ways, or just don't have emotions. Just make a purely comedic movie, which would be great. But yeah, Yondu's death being here, totally not like discounting it in any way. Felt great, felt natural, felt sad. I cried a little bit during the funeral. It was very touching. Anyway, back to the funnies. Oh, I forgot, one more really cool thing that I'm sure everyone who didn't understand this reference in the theater was like, the fuck? And this is, I don't think they're ever gonna do anything with this, but there's a point where Ego like taps Star-Lord on his forehead and kind of takes him, not really, kind of takes him under his control and is like showing him the universe and everything that he can do. And his eyes slowly fill with a black starry, like void-like thing. And then he just looks up and says, I can see it. Eternity. And comic book me was like, what the fuck? Holy shit. They're talking about eternity now? For those that don't know, eternity is like the embodiment of the entire Marvel multiverse in one being. And it's just a really cool offhanded reference that the Guardians movies seem to really love to do, which makes me wonder if we're gonna see eternity in Volume 3. Because in Volume 1, or sorry, Guardians of the Galaxy, the first, the Celestials were mentioned and shown to an extent, but like in their like kind of archaic big boy form. And then in Volume 2, we see a Celestial in Ego, so like in the flesh. So, well, flesh. But so that, yeah, that makes me wonder if in Volume 3 they're gonna go fucking super cosmic, like fourth dimensional shit, and show us eternity, which would be really cool. I don't know what they would do with that, but it'd be fun. So I guess the last thing I should end on is the mid-credits scene. And there were actually there were a bunch of these, but there was one mid-credit scene that was very clearly like the mid-credit scene. A lot of them were just like comedy bits, like I think Cracklin is his name, put on like Yondu's fin and was trying to whistle with his arrow thing and accidentally stabbed Drax with it. My camera overheated and died, and I recorded a lot but didn't realize it, so it's the online podcast now without Scott. There was also Star-Lord walking into now teenage Groot's room, and he's just being like a stereotypical edgy teen, and that was pretty great. I enjoyed that. But like the actual mid-credit scene that held like the sequel bait mid-credit scene was the Simpsons, the Sovereign, who just, they're the Simpsons. They're all yellow, and the Sovereign, is funny. Anyway, the leader of that, she's looking all like disheveled in her chambers or whatever, and her handmaiden or some shit comes up to her and is like, "What's going on, baby?" And she's like, "Adam Warlock, baby!" And it was pretty great. They don't actually deliver their lines like that, but basically she's just like, "This is the next line in our evolution, incredibleness," and the camera slowly pans to like this containment unit. It's a cocoon. It's Adam Warlock's cocoon, and she just goes, "I shall call him Adam." And I was like, wait a minute, Adam. And my mind immediately went to the Avengers, where we had fucking Yellow Boy Adam, but I think they mean Adam Warlock, because it wouldn't make sense otherwise. Plus, he's probably gonna have the last Infinity Stone in him somehow. But it's exciting. I could feel like, because she just says Adam. She doesn't say like Adam Warlock or anything like that. She just says Adam. So everyone around me in the theater, at least in like the two people next to me and the people, or the people next to me, were just like, okay. But I was like, oh shit, Adam Warlock. And I know I've mentioned like moments like this during the movie over the course. I'm not saying that I'm better than anyone by getting these references, but they're references for people who know what the hell's going on in terms of comic book stuff. Yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed it. Another thing that I just want to, just a fun note to end on before I close out the review. Some asshole in the theater after the post-credit scene with the Watchers and Stan Lee was just like, "Is that it? Are we done?" And I was like, "The fuck? Calm down, dude. It's just a funny post-credits." I think he was expecting like a scene from fucking Ragnarok or Homecoming or some shit, or some mind-blowing scene, which isn't really what the post-credit scenes have been lately. The mid-credit scenes have mostly been the sequel bait. And he said it twice. He was like, "That's it?" I was like, fucking, you just saw like a 3-hour movie and some sequel bait that you probably didn't understand. What more do you want? The movie was great. Calm down, dude. So yeah, there you have it. That's my review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I talked for a pretty long time, nearly half an hour, before this goes into editing. I had a lot to say on the movie. I really fucking enjoyed it. Definitely go see it. Just kind of repeating myself from earlier. I super love this movie. Way better than the first one. I feel like the first one got a little bit overrated. So I'm excited to see the response to this one, because shit, I thought it was way better. My camera overheated, I think. It just shut off. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.